The defendant, Cole Vance, is found guilty. As the judge's gavel fell, I heard Jenna Riley's laugh. She stood on the witness stand, holding onto the arm of the one who got away. "Cole, you know something?" she said. "All those years with you, even breathing felt exhausting. Now, I'm finally free of you." I smiled. For years, I'd showered her with luxury gifts, bought her sports cars, set her up in a penthouse, and treated her like a queen. And now, for him, for that idealized memory of a first love, she was sending me to prison herself. 01. The marble floors of the courthouse hallway reflected the sterile, white lights from above. Reporters, held back by bailiffs 30 feet away, unleashed a barrage of camera flashes. The blinding light exploded against the walls and vanished, like a silent avalanche. Right now, local Twitter was having a meltdown. Hashtag TechMobileControlFreak, hashtag BillionaireNightmareLove, hashtag ApexODarkSecrets exposed. The sharp click of Jenna's heels on the floor sounded like a countdown. She clung to Ethan Hayes' arm, a triumphant smirk on her red lips, her eyes filled with the pity of a victor. "Cole," she sighed, a perfect performance of regret. "You made your bed. You should have known when you were doing all those terrible things that this day would come sooner or later." Beside her, Ethan Hayes, her sainted ex, adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. A glint of phony righteousness flashed behind the lenses. "The law is the law. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied." His tone was sincere, but he couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from turning up. "You should do some real soul-searching in there. Jenna is finally out of your control," he continued, tightening his grip on her waist as if to show me his prize. They laced their fingers together, a portrait of grim determination. "It's time for her to find her own happiness." I looked at the smug pair and suddenly chuckled. "Is that right?" I said, slowly straightening my cuffs. "So, I guess I should thank you too for giving me a chance to turn over a new leaf?" Jenna's brow furrowed, seemingly provoked by my unexpected calm. "Cole, what do you have to be so proud of a time like this? Getting 7 years instead of 20 was a miracle. Just accept it. Stop fighting." My smile widened. For the past few weeks, under the influence of her so-called one that got away, Jenna had worked tirelessly to dig up evidence of my crimes, all to escape my control. The only thing is, neither of them knew it yet. All that evidence, I had deliberately let them find it. But it didn't matter anymore. "Jenna, I was done with the pleasantries." I lowered my voice, the chain of my handcuffs rattling. "Since you feel like I've been controlling you all these years, let's just say we're even. But let me give you one piece of advice. That money, don't touch it." Jenna froze for a second, then burst out laughing. "Cole, you just worry about enjoying your new life in a cell. Whatever I do from now on has nothing to do with you." Watching her and her perfect man walk away hand in hand, I shook my head. How did I never realize how greedy this woman was? Outside the courthouse doors, a bailiff temporarily unlocked my cuffs. I pulled a pack of cigarettes from my pocket. "Mind if I have one?" Seeing my completely unbothered expression, the bailiff gave me a strange look before turning his head away. The rich, bitter aroma of expensive tobacco filled the air. I thought back to the first time I saw Jenna. It was in the back alley of a dive bar called the Blue Dahlia. She was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting sequin dress. Her heels had rubbed her ankles raw, and she was crying next to a dumpster. I handed her a tissue. When she looked up, her mascara was a smeared mess, making her look like a sparrow caught in the rain. Don't tell my manager. He'll dock my pay." The way she sobbed, the way her voice trembled. It reminded me of the girl next door from my childhood. Later, she always said I was the one who pulled her out of the gutter. Looking back now, it would be more accurate to say I personally fastened a set of gorgeous shackles on her. Hermes dresses, Cartier bracelets, Chanel pearl necklaces. I piled them on her one by one, like dressing up a doll in gold and silver. And her smile. It was beautiful. In a rose garden, in a passenger seat of the Porsche, in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the presidential suite. She would hold me tight, as if she had the whole world in her arms, and say, "Cole, you're my knight in shining armor. I'd die without you." Until 2 weeks ago, when the one that got away, Ethan Hayes, came back to the States. Ethan was her first love, the big man on campus back in college who had broken up with her to study abroad. The day he called her, Her entire body was shaking. "Jenna, I'm back." That one sentence was enough to make her lose her mind. And with that one sentence, everything I'd ever done for her became the evidence of how I'd imprisoned her. She started meeting with him constantly, staying out all night with the most childish and laughable excuses. I pretended I didn't know. I just never imagined that, egged on by him, she would hit me with a surprise of this magnitude. Did I ever love her? Staring at the burning cigarette in my hand, I asked myself that question. Of course I did. It's just, maybe the person I loved was the little girl trembling in that alley, the Jenna whose ears would turn bright red if I simply asked, "Are you cold?" Not the woman who stood in a courtroom today, using everything I ever taught her to push me, word by word, on a death row. 0-2 the ash fell onto my palm, like the burnt petals of a rose. Just as I was finishing my cigarette, a black Audi A6 pulled up, its headlights cutting through the evening gloom. It stopped right at the courthouse steps. 15 minutes later, in a holding cell, I met with the Audi's owner. He was an old acquaintance, Detective Miller, head of the city's major crimes unit. "How did it come to this? What the hell is your girlfriend thinking? Has the plan been compromised? Is your cover blown?" Sensing Miller's anxiety, I gave him a faint smile. "Do you not trust me? Or do you not trust yourself? Relax. Today was just a minor hiccup." Hearing this, Miller let out a sigh of relief. "Good. Don't worry. I'll call the warden ahead of time." "No rush. I'm not in any rush at all. I'm not a cop. I'm a confidential informant working with the police. 5 years ago, I officially joined Apex Consolidated, a publicly traded company that looked pristine on the surface, but was secretly the nexus of the city's entire criminal underworld." Miller, who was just a sergeant back then, approached me several times, asking for my cooperation in their investigation. He sought me out for a reason. His investigation had revealed that my cousin, who I grew up with like a brother, had his life and family destroyed by Apex Consolidated. My entire reason for joining the company was to find out what happened. So, when Miller proposed we work together, I agreed. Over the past 5 years, I clawed my way up the corporate ladder, becoming the respected Mr. Vance, while secretly digging up every dirty deal the corporation tried to hide. The CFO using company funds to launder money. The head of security using violent debt collection tactics that left people permanently disabled. The board of directors colluding with foreign entities for smuggling operations. And of course, the truth about what happened to my cousin. This month, all the pieces of evidence were finally in place. We were one step away from closing the net. And then, at the most critical moment, the woman I once loved most, Jenna Riley, gave me this little surprise. Now that I was arrested, it was no wonder the good detective was so nervous. The truth is, I could have recanted my testimony in court today, but doing so would have tipped our hand. 5 years of work with the police would have all been for nothing. So I pleaded guilty without hesitation. As for the money, I warned Jenna not to touch. A cool $40 million. It was the final tranche of laundered drug money belonging to the corporation's true mastermind, the man the police ultimately wanted to take down, Silas Sil Corrigan. I had spent the last 8 months diligently helping Corrigan legitimize that money through a series of offshore accounts. It was because of that effort that I had earned his complete and total trust. "Jenna, I warned you. Some money you just can't touch." To avoid being spotted by Corrigan's people, Miller didn't stay long. I was transferred to the county jail. Just as I expected, the moment I arrived, Corrigan sent a man with a message. "Mr. Vance, don't you worry. Mr. Corrigan said he'll get you out as soon as possible. Just lie low and make yourself comfortable for a few days." Stepping into my private cell, I couldn't help but smile. Classic Silas Corrigan. He thought of everything. The cell had a smart toilet, and the sheets on the bed were brand new silk. A button on the wall was a direct line to his personal lawyer. If you didn't know any better, you'd think this was a VIP lounge at a country club. Honestly, if it weren't for what happened to my cousin and the mountain of dirt on Corrigan himself, the loyalty he showed his people might have been enough to make me a true believer. Anyway, with Corrigan and Miller both pulling strings behind the scenes, not only did I have a comfortable private cell, but I also got to keep my personal phone. I took a shower, lay down on the bed, and thought about what Jenna said as she left the courthouse. Enjoy your new life in a cell. I suddenly felt a wave of pity for her. She probably couldn't even imagine in her wildest dreams that for the 7-year sentence she personally handed me, both the cops and the criminals were now working overtime to shorten it. Sigh. The power of a first love is really something else. It can make a woman so reckless, so completely insane. I swiped open my phone and pulled up the security camera feed from the penthouse. The light from the crystal chandelier was painfully bright. Jenna, wearing a silk nightgown I bought her, was popping a bottle of champagne with Ethan Hayes to celebrate. Everything's all set with the bank in Switzerland. Through the screen, I could clearly see the excitement on Ethan's face. One arm was wrapped around Jenna's waist, while the other hand tapped on a tablet, pulling up an account balance. Once all the money is transferred, we'll buy a cliffside villa in Santorini. Jenna, you suffered so much with a guy like that all these years. Jenna leaned on his shoulder, looking gentle and happy. You have no idea. Living with him, I felt like I was in a prison. And seeing that scar on his face, it's like a centipede. It's disgusting. She glanced at the tablet screen again and couldn't help but smile. Cole Vance stole years of my youth. Now I'm taking over 40 million of his. I'd say we're even. Huh. So that's how she saw the scar on my face. Disgusting. 03, I closed the app and instinctively touched the 2-inch-long, jagged scar on my right cheek. The uneven texture met my fingertips, and I couldn't help but laugh. 2 Valentine's days ago, Jenna insisted on going to a Michelin-starred restaurant on the outskirts of the city. On the way back, a drunk driver in a semi-truck swerved into our lane. I yanked the steering wheel hard, making sure the passenger side avoided the impact. The moment the windshield shattered, she was left without a scratch. My face was sliced open by a metal bracket from the airbag, a gash that went down to the bone. You're going to have a scar. This is all my fault. We shouldn't have gone to that restaurant. Oh, God. She was shaking and crying outside the emergency room. I just held a bandage to my face and teased her. Well, after we're married, you'll just have to give me a beautiful kid to make up for this ugly scar. After that, she always said the scar was like a string of fate, a knot tied by the heavens to bind us together. Now that same scar, in front of the one that got away, it had become disgusting. On my 5th day in jail, Jenna came to visit. More accurately, she came to show off. With her true love by her side these past few days, her entire aura had changed. She was glowing. She wore a bold red lipstick. Her nails were a fresh French manicure, and the scent of Chanel No. 5 was sprayed a little too heavily in her hair. She sat across from me behind the bulletproof glass, one leg crossed over the other, her silk stocking intentionally showing off the anklet I'd given her. Hanging from the anklet was a blue diamond ring. The ring looked familiar. Oh, right. It was the ring I was planning to use to propose. Now it was dangling from her ankle, swinging back and forth as her leg bounced. Ethan and I are leaving soon. Our flight is next Wednesday. She spun her new phone on the table. He's already found a cliffside villa in Santorini, the kind with an infinity pool. I wasn't going to tell you, but since we have a history, I figure I should come say a final goodbye. After speaking, she stared intently at my face, as if waiting for me to break down in tears and beg her not to leave. And why wouldn't she? I used to love her that much. So much that I'd agonize over a simple cold. So much that I could turn a blind eye when she was secretly running around with her ex, not coming home at night. Now, she was leaving. Surely I was supposed to have a heart-wrenching breakdown and try to keep her here. But I didn't. I just smiled calmly. We have a history, so you sent me to prison? Jenna, your definition of history is really something else. Jenna scoffed. Cole, you deserve everything that's happening to you. You did so many bad things, you had to know this day would come. Do you have any idea how much agony I was in, living with a criminal like you every day? And another thing, if you hadn't barged into my life, I would have reconnected with Ethan years ago. Seeing her indignant expression, I was dumbstruck. I knew about that. A year ago, Ethan had asked a mutual friend to check on Jenna at the club where she used to work. But by then, I had already set her up in the penthouse, living like a princess. Right? Pulling you out of a toxic place like a nightclub, preventing you from reuniting with your first love sooner. I, Cole Vance, am truly a monster. Jenna took my silence as an admission of guilt. To twist the knife for maximum satisfaction, she pulled a sonogram photo from her Hermes bag and slapped it against the glass. Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. I'm pregnant. But it's not yours. It's Ethan's. The doctor says it's a boy. He's going to have his father's eyes. I stared at the little bean-shaped image, remembering how just last month she'd texted me about her period, asking me to make her some chamomile tea. I had carefully brewed it for her. Turns out that day, she claimed she was at a class reunion and didn't come home all night. Now I see. She wasn't on her period at all. She was out having fun with her one true love. Thinking about it, I just smiled calmly. But that wasn't enough for Jenna. She kept poking at my weak spots. Ethan has already picked out a name for the baby. He even chose a good, strong name. Ethan Jr. It just sounds so classy, you know? So much better than those plain, boring names you came up with. Her words jogged my memory. We used to talk about getting married. I'd hold her, and we'd brainstorm names for a boy, for a girl. Back then, Jenna would lean against my chest, smile gently, and say that whatever I decided was fine with her. And now, whatever. The guard standing nearby couldn't take it anymore and cleared his throat. His cough only seemed to energize Jenna, who raised her voice a few decibels. My expression remained neutral. I turned to the guard. Give us a minute alone. You got it, Cole. Seeing the guard turn, leave, and carefully shut the door behind him, Jenna was stunned. What did he call you? That's not important. 0, for I tapped my fingers lightly on the table. For the sake of the years she'd spent with me, I felt I owed her the courtesy of knowing just how wrong she was. Jenna, I looked at her still shocked face. To be honest with you, I'm getting out of here in 2 days. She was stunned. That's impossible. Under normal circumstances, it would be. I glanced at the ring on her anklet and smiled faintly. But what you and Ethan don't know is that the evidence you collected, I deliberately let you find it. To put it bluntly, everything you know is only what I wanted you to know. As I spoke, I subconsciously stroked my chin. It was a habit of mine. Whenever I was making a major decision, orchestrating a complex plan, I would stroke my chin. Jenna knew this habit well, but she still didn't believe me. No way. Her voice became shrill as she stared at me, agitated. How could the evidence be fake? 6 months ago, with that construction site demolition, you had your guys dump that guy, Frank Kowalski, in the river. You said so yourself. I chuckled softly. At the time, Silas Corrigan had a mole watching you. Of course I had to tell you the truth. In reality, on that rainy night when Corrigan's nephew told me to deal with Kowalski by the river, I used a little sleight of hand. I had my men secretly put him on a train to Arizona. Afterward, Kowalski used the settlement money I gave him to open a small motel in Sedona. He quietly moved his whole family out there. He posts pictures of his grandkids on Facebook every day. Seeing my silent smile, Jenna pressed on, unconvinced. And 3 months ago, that shipment at the East Harbor warehouse. The records clearly show you were smuggling illegal goods. The evidence was concrete. You can't deny it. I sighed. That shipment of illegal goods was actually a batch of resin replicas made by Detective Miller's Special Task Force. It was all for show, to make sure Corrigan wouldn't get suspicious of me. The real contraband had been secretly destroyed by Miller's team long ago. And the most disgusting thing was that college girl. As she said this, Jenna's eyes were filled with contempt. She was only 20, and you loan-sharked her, then had your men. The college girl? I couldn't help but laugh out loud again. That girl was actually a police academy intern. She was playing a role in a little show we put on for Corrigan. Miller told me later that she was commended for her work on the case and is now a rising star in a detective squad out of state. I couldn't be bothered to explain all the details. Instead, I looked at Jenna seriously through the glass. I can't disclose much more, but I'll tell you this. Everything you found was counterfeit evidence. So you're innocent. Fine. Jenna suddenly laughed, cutting me off. Her tone was breezy, as if discussing the weather. I know you have powerful people backing you up. So what? Even if you get out, I already got what I wanted. Besides, you're still locked up in here, aren't you? Locked up? If she saw my luxury cell, she probably wouldn't think so. Anyway, Ethan has already arranged everything. We've bought a house by the ocean, and the rest of the money is more than enough for us to live worry-free for the rest of our lives. Seeing the hopeful, dreamy look on her face only made me pity her more. I turned my head and looked at a damp patch of concrete on the wall outside, where 2 ants were fruitlessly trying to move a breadcrumb. Jenna, I cut through her fantasy. To borrow your own words, since we have a history, I'm giving you one last warning. Don't touch that money, and get out of this city with Ethan Hayes as soon as you can. Your time is running out. $40 million. That was Silas Corrigan's biggest score. No matter how big her and Ethan's appetite was, they didn't have the stomach to digest it. Uffed. Jenna laughed at my serious demeanor. Cole, you look ridiculous when you're jealous. That money was your ill-gotten gain to begin with. The fact that Ethan and I could take it just proves how capable we are. If you could touch it, why can't we? Now I have money and freedom, while you... Even if you escape the law, you're just a pathetic loser who got lucky. The moment money was mentioned, the light in Jenna's eyes changed. It made sense. That kind of money would drive most people in the world mad. But I wanted to give her one more warning. Aren't you afraid I'll report the missing funds and have the accounts frozen? You wouldn't dare. Jenna's smile was confident, her words deliberate. That money can't see the light of day. If you report it, you'll only be creating more trouble for yourself, wouldn't you? Seeing her smug self-assurance, I knew any further warnings were useless. Just then, her phone vibrated. It was clearly a message from Ethan. Jenna glanced at it, then stood up beaming. As she left, she tossed one last line over her shoulder. Cole, you and I are finished. We don't owe each other a thing. Don't ever bother me again. Of course, I won't give you the chance to. Watching her slam the door on her way out, I smiled. Fine. You can't stop someone who's determined to self-destruct. 05 Jenna, I gave you 2 chances. Since you chose not to take them, you have no one to blame but yourself. Silas Corrigan still had plenty of pull. 2 days later, under his arrangements, I walked out of jail without a hitch. Of course, Detective Miller hadn't been idle either. He used the opportunity to uncover the special relationship Corrigan had with the prison administration. When I met Silas at his estate, the man whose slightest move could cause tremors throughout the city had just smashed his favorite antique teapot. They touched my money. He stared at the account balance on his computer screen and let out a cold laugh. The blue light of the monitor reflected off his gold-rimmed glasses, making him look like an aging, enraged lion. Some little punk just back from overseas has a lot of nerve. On a phone next to him, a security feed was playing. In a private room at one of the biggest casinos in Las Vegas, Ethan Hayes, dressed to the nines, had his arm around a supermodel, living it up. In fact, before I even came to see Silas, Miller had already informed me that they had a covert surveillance team monitoring Ethan. As long as he didn't touch the money, things wouldn't get too bad. But when I saw that footage and learned that Ethan had already lost over $1 million, I knew it was over for him. Not even God could save him now. I was sure of it. Silas was still cursing a blue streak. In all the years I'd known him, I'd never seen him this agitated. I stepped forward with a sincere look of apology. Silas, it was my fault. I didn't keep my own house in order. Though he was older, Silas was still sharp and clear-headed. He waved my apology away. Cole, enough. This isn't on you. His butler handed him a hot towel. Sir, our people have been notified. They're on their way to Vegas now. And the woman. Should we deal with her as well? No need. Silas took the towel and wiped his hands, his knuckles cracking loudly. She was with Cole, after all. As for the kid, we'll handle him according to the old rules. Understood. According to Silas's wishes, dealing with Jenna was up to me. But as far as I was concerned, there was no need. She said it herself. We were finished. We owed each other nothing. More importantly, Miller's team was beginning to execute the final phase of their operation. At this critical juncture, my top priority was caution. After leaving the estate, I stayed in close contact with Miller, preparing for the final takedown. For my own safety, I didn't return to my penthouse. I rented an apartment in a nondescript building. My nerves were frayed every day. My single focus was on how to bring Silas Corrigan to justice and avenge my cousin. I had almost forgotten about Jenna entirely. I never expected her to find out where I was living and show up at my door. Compared to our last meeting in jail less than a month ago, she had lost a lot of weight. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd been crying for days. Cole, she called my name, her voice trembling as tears streamed down her face. Ethan, he lied to me. I looked at her, my face a coal mask, and she collapsed onto the floor. He took all the money and disappeared. My expression didn't change. I wasn't surprised at all. The day she sent me to court, both Silas and Miller had independently run a background check on Ethan Hayes. The kid was a complete fraud. His degrees and resume were all faked. He had racked up massive gambling debts overseas and had come back to the States looking for a wealthy woman to bail him out. Naturally, he set his sights on Jenna, whispering in her ear, "A monster like Cole Vance doesn't deserve you. You should take back what's rightfully yours." And then, Jenna believed him. Was it pathetic? I didn't think so at all. But what Jenna said next did catch me off guard. He didn't just take the money. He made me get rid of the baby. "Cole, the baby. It was yours." She sobbed hysterically, telling me the supposed truth between gasps. "I was drunk that night. I thought it was him, but when I woke up, it was you. I hated you, so I didn't want you to know." I froze. The baby was mine, and she, in order to be with her perfect ex, had lied and told him it was his. The irony was that Ethan never had any intention of being with her. He just wanted the money and to get away clean. The baby was a complication, so he made her get rid of it. But I quickly came to my senses. The Jenna standing before me now was not the innocent girl I first met. Whose baby it really was just a matter of whatever words came out her mouth. Besides, the baby was already gone. Even if it had been mine, what difference would it make now? None of this has anything to do with me. Please don't interrupt my life. With that, I turned, went back into my apartment, and shut the door on her cries. The final phase of the operation went smoothly. But in Vegas, Miller's colleagues were a step too late. Silas's men got there first and took Ethan Hayes. I only found out what happened to him later from Miller. During their interrogation of Silas, he revealed Ethan's location. By the time the police task force arrived at the abandoned brick factory on the outskirts of the city, Ethan was barely breathing. One of his legs had been broken. That was Silas Corrigan for you. A man of his word. If he said he was going to break one leg, he wouldn't touch your arm. 06 hearing the news, I felt not a single ripple of emotion. Silas Corrigan's arrest was a massive story. As for my own case, the police issued a statement clarifying my role, and public opinion flipped on a dime. Hashtag Cole Vance Hero Cop, hashtag Jenna Riley Perjury Investigation, hashtag The Con Man Exposed. I even saw one trending comment. "Everyone who badmouthed Cole Vance needs to apologize now. The man helped the cops take down the city's biggest crime syndicate, and you people just blindly followed the mob and slandered him. Shameful." The comment was accompanied by a screenshot of Jenna pointing at me in court, photoshopped into a confession meme. With Corrigan's arrest, Apex Consolidated, the cancer that had plagued the city for years, was shut down. I started my own company. Within 6 months, it was thriving. Life was busy, but fulfilling. As for Jenna, although a perjury case was opened, Miller, as a favor to me, didn't pursue it. It just faded away. But she couldn't stay in this city anymore. Ever since the story of my exoneration broke, she had vanished. Maybe she left, off to find her freedom and happiness somewhere else. I saw her again a year later. I was in Phoenix for a business meeting. After a long dinner, the client insisted we go to a nightclub and arrange for some girls to liven things up. When a line of them walked in, I saw her. It was like a cruel joke played by fate. She was wearing the same kind of cheap sequin dress she had on when we first met. The neckline was low, and a tacky temporary tattoo covered the mole on her collarbone. She froze when she saw me. Her fingers twisted the hem of her dress, a mixture of nerves and excitement. But we didn't exchange a single word the entire night. As I was leaving, she ran out after me. "Cole." As she called my name, she twisted her ankle and fell to her knees on the marble steps, scraping them bloody. Her carefully styled curls were plastered to her tear-streaked face. I was wrong. I never should have done that to you. She looked up at me like a drowning person, mascara creating black rivers down her cheeks. This past year, I've had nightmares every single night. I dream about the way you looked at me in that prison. I never should have listened to Ethan. He's a monster. And you were the only one in the world who was ever good to me. I watched her without expression. A year ago, I would have rushed to her side, held her in my arms, checked her knee, and then sped off to the hospital to get her patched up. But not now. I wouldn't. She stumbled down the steps and grabbed the leg of my pants. "I'm the real criminal. Please, can you forgive me? I tried to find you after I saw you on the news, but you had moved. I went to your old office. But Apex was shut down. I didn't know where you went, so I waited outside the building every day. And then I ran out of money. Cole, I regret everything. Now fate has brought us together again. It's a sign, right? The neon lights of the club shifted across her hopeful face, red and green, like a badly staged play. I didn't answer. I lit a cigarette, took a drag, and exhaled a smoke ring, watching it slowly dissolve in the air, just like all the good memories between us. There are no signs, and I already gave you 2 chances. I looked down at her, my voice devoid of emotion. The first was outside the courthouse. The second was in the prison, when you came to say goodbye. I only give 2 chances. I pried her cold fingers off my leg, one by one. We're adults, Jenna. You should know how this works. She was sobbing uncontrollably now. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with despair. The doctor said I have stomach cancer. I only have 6 months left. I fell silent. When I first met her, she was always complaining about stomach pain. For years, I woke up early every morning to brew her herbal remedies, and her stomach problems gradually got better. But after she got involved with Ethan, she stopped taking care of herself. It was only natural that it got worse. Jenna, I stubbed out my cigarette. Your problem was never in your stomach. With that, I turned and walked away, and I didn't look back. Another 6 months passed. I was with my new girlfriend, vacationing on a beach in Santorini, when I got an overseas call from Detective Miller. That woman, Jenna Riley, she found out you and I worked together, so she tracked me down. Miller's voice was weary. She insisted I do her a favor, asked me to pass along a recording to you. Then, through a faint crackle of static, I heard Jenna's voice, as thin as a thread. Cole, if there really is a next life, I promise I'll love you right. I calmly ended the call. My girlfriend walked over, her feet bare in the sand, her presence as gentle as the tide. Honey, who was that? A telemarketer,